Okay, eyes up here.
What if I got eyes in the back of my head? You just can't see.
616. Remember this page that we worked with yesterday? I had difficulties getting it set up right because I linked it instead of putting the CSS in the head. Okay. What we did is we actually opened up a page made from a template that actually had a nav bar on the left, certain banner on the top, and a footer on the bottom with 2 columns. What we did is we actually went through and took out some of the default text that comes with that page and then put our items in. A couple things that we had problems with yesterday, specifically myself because I couldn't read directions, and Mitchell nailed it right away and let me know, and you got this special chocolate treat for that. We needed to make sure that we did that CSS in the head, not linked to, and then the page came up correctly. The next problem that we had was copying our banner and our nav bar. We needed to make sure we had everything highlighted correctly in code, looked at it, but then went back to design view. And then in design view we had to copy. And then we went in here and then we pasted, and then everything would work correctly on that. That was a couple things I was walking around trying to troubleshoot yesterday. We went through and put in our Sand Crab Cafe graphic there. We put this image in there, and we're basically working with CSS division tags based on where it's located on the page would determine its rule that we're going to apply to it, and we do have lots of different CSS tags over on our CSS style page. So we're just going to go through and finish up our CSS, and then we're going to work on tables. So hopefully it won't take me very long to get through the CSS. All right. Let's go ahead on our CSS rule. Let's select our body style. You see where I am on the right hand side there? I selected under style, I selected body. And then let's go ahead and edit that rule. And when we edit that rule, what we want to do is we actually want to change our font. To change your font, you're going to go under the type category. And right now we're at Verdana, Arial Helvetica, Sans Serif, and we're going to choose Arial Helvetica. Okay, so we're going to choose the Arial Helvetica Sans Serif font. And then you can go ahead and click on OK, and then what will happen is the font changed in that whole area once. I didn't have to highlight it and select it because it was set up using our CSS rule. The font family property in this body rule determines the font family for all text on this page unless another one is specified for a different container, such as footer, with an external style or a different internal style sheet. Okay? The body is a parent container. This is an important concept. A container with other tags falling between its opening and closing tags will be considered child containers. Child containers are those who reside within a parent. All HTML tags for a page content are inside the body tags. So unless a different font is specified in a different container, each child container inherits the properties of its parent. So, for example, we set on the body tag our font. It'll go through on all of them except maybe in the footer style. If the footer style said use Georgiana, then that would use that font because it would overwrite. Otherwise, it always inherits the rule that's outside of it. Important concepts. You might see that coming up soon. Okay, let's go ahead and edit our header rule. So to edit our header rule, we're going to go on the right-hand side under Style, scroll down until you find Header. And then we can actually click to show the properties. I'm trying to move mine because of my screen. So what I just did is I selected header, and right now my header property, I actually have the background color set to AD896E. Do you see that right here where I'm at? To get this to pop up, I clicked only, show only set of properties, and then I actually had to drag it in order for me to see everything in there. Okay, do you see where I'm at? I didn't click on the edit button. I clicked on the button that says show only set of properties, and then I'm going to go in and I can just click right here, and then I can just type in pound FFF, and that will change the background property for my header. And what color did it change it to? Anyone notice? Background color, FFF stands for what color?
White.
White, thank you. Still in our header rule, what we want to do is let's go ahead and modify that content. So you can change it down below here for anything that's set, but we'll click on the actual edit rule button. And then let's go ahead and go to the box category. And what we have here on the box category, we want to type in our top margin, we're going to type in 5, and 5 is going to stand for pixels. And as long as we keep this check mark right here same for all, top, right, bottom, and left will have the same pixels set to it. If I take the check mark off, then I can overwrite it. So we actually want to have 5 all the way around. And then you can click on OK and watch what happens to your header area. Did you see how you had a 5-inch pixel kind of go to the left and to the right? Probably didn't notice as much on the top part of it. The last thing that we're going to do, sorry, not the last thing, I was off a page. Select your cafe photo image, this one right here in the middle. And let's set our H space of this image to 40. In case you've forgotten where H space is, you select your image. Down here in the properties panel right here by my hand, you have H space, and you're going to type that into 40. That's going to give you your horizontal space, which is going to be left to right. And when you hit enter on that, you will notice that your image jumps over a lot. So basically, I have left and right, I have 40 pixels of white space that's going to go around it. Now, we need to do the same thing for our footer rule. So on the right-hand side, choose your footer rule. And let's change our background color to FFF. So we want our background color for our footer to be white. So our header and footer are now, background color should be set to white. And go ahead and save that. If you hit F12, get a preview of it, it should look like this. How'd you do? Taylor?
What? I was just reading
F12 it? Did you F12 it? Because you're behind.
I know, right? That's actually.
What sand crab that you're going to cut off?
I know, I just.
I have a shift enter before my sand crab cafe. If it looks like yours is being cut off, you can certainly go before your image and do a shift enter to put a break in there. And Dreamweaver, go like right before it and put a shift enter there, so that way you can see the tip of his claws. Did that help? Save that and then hit a F12 again, and it should come on there then.
Right to the left of it?
Yes, what I would do is I would select Sand Crab Cafe and then move my cursor to the left of it and then do a shift enter, because it's going to be right there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now we're going to go through and modify our page properties. Okay. So what we're going to do is in our CSS rule where we just did header and footer, you're going to choose the one that says container. Container is going to be the CSS rule that we're going to modify that is going to change all properties on the page, kind of like our page property where we set our background image. So go ahead and select container. And then let's go ahead and click on the edit button for that rule. And then you'll get your CSS rule definition for container. We're going to choose the border category on the left-hand side. And what we want to do is we can set our border style, width, and color. Under styles, let's go ahead and choose solid. And notice that we have the check mark set for same for all, so top, right, bottom, and left would be set the same. For your width, let's go ahead and choose thin. And color, what we want to do is if you click in the first one and then type in #033, and then you should find if you hit tab, then it'll actually fill all those down so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so that we just set the border color of that. And the next thing we want to do is actually choose our, click on OK. It just put a border around my container, and then we're going to choose our body rule. Under style, choose the other body, and let's edit that one. Choose your background category and change your background category to #FFF. And then when you click on OK, if I hit F12, notice what it did. The first rule, the container rule that we did, put this border all the way around here. The second one that I did before, when we opened it up, it had a color all the way around it. We just took the color all the way off and we just have a border around. Last thing that we have to do is, I want to notice this because this is one of my pet peeves. Okay, I have lots of pet peeves. When I'm visiting a page, what is the title of this document? Untitled. You never want to have a page that says untitled. Okay. So we have to go through and name that. So let's go ahead on back in Dreamweaver and then let's give this page a name, please. The Striped Umbrella Sand Crab Cafe. And that will be, you can do that right up here in this title section. Right here is where you can enter in the name of this page. And then when you save it, it will, when you F12 it again, when you preview it, it will have the correct name. Now mine says up here on my tab, it says the Striped Umbrella Sandcaf Cafe instead of untitled, so that is a good thing.
Does show only set properties done?
You have to drag it up and down. You have to choose a CSS rule, and then you can click on it. If you don't have a rule selected, you can't select that.
But what does it do?
It does this. It shows this.
Oh.
Okay.
But it doesn't have anything.
Ready for tables? Mrs. Grasso likes tables! Yay! cafe page, do you select your cafe photo logo and then move on your keyboard, use your arrow key and move one to the right. So you're immediately after the sand crab cafe photo. Now, under my insert menu, which I have mine turned off, window, insert, and I'm going to choose, go back to my common. I'm going to go down and notice how you have table as a choice under your insert menu. And when your table, when you click on insert table, you have to be aware of where your cursor is when you click on insert table, because wherever your cursor is, that's where your table is going to go. Now, we have done tables before, but let's look at what we can decide. Here, we can decide how many rows and how many columns. First thing you have to remember is what is a row and what is a column. Rows, going across. Columns, up and down. Okay. Table width. Here, we can decide, I could have a table that has 7 columns that's only 100 pixel wide. So how wide is each column going to be? Teeny tiny, right? So I can set my width here, and I can set it by pixels, or I could also set it as percent. What would happen if I set my table width as a percent? What happens if I set it at 100% on this screen? Be really wide, correct? What happens if you look at it in a Chromebook?
Yes, it's gone.
It would be really narrow, right? Because it's only going to be the width of the screen. So you have to be aware of, if you set it as percent, when other people view it on other size devices, it's going to change a lot what your information looks like. So sometimes fixed makes it a little bit easier. We also have a border thickness where we can set how thick our borders are. One of the things I like, because I know students sometimes struggle with what is the difference between cell padding and cell spacing, they have these little pictures here. And what is blue actually describes what they are. So cell padding is the space between the border and the information you have in there. So if I had a cell and I typed the word the, we have cell padding as the space between the border and the T and the. Okay? Now cell spacing is the space between each individual cell, so you could actually make that width be a little bit bigger. And it would change how your borders appear. So I like that when we put a table in here, it gives you a visual, and the visual is based on that blue shading, what it does. The other thing we have is you can actually set up right here in your table, it can say which one of your cells or rows is going to be your header information. Because remember, we have our Americans with Disability Act. When you have a device that will read it back, the headers would actually go through and describe the information in it when it would read back to somebody with a disability. We have a caption and a summary also here. So this table nicely pops up, and then we have to plug it in where we're going to have 5 rows, 3 columns, 600 pixels, and our border to 0. And we want to have a top header. So everything that I have selected is going to be what you're going to put in. In the summary, we're going to type in, this table contains the cafe hours for each dining room. So in the summary of your table, you will type in just a brief thing about the information that they're going to find in this table. Once you have the summary typed in, then you can click on OK, and then there's your table. How come the table didn't go right here? Any idea? This is where my cursor was when I put the table in. Why didn't it go up here next to the picture? Not enough room. How wide did I tell the table to be? 600 pixels, would you agree? Now, I can't fit 600 pixels here because in this page set up by CSS, this container area right here is only a certain pixel wide, so therefore it knew it had to wrap down to the next line. Even though I didn't do a shift enter or a P. Other thing I want to point out With my table selected, look at my properties panel. This is the most confusing thing. Have eyes up here. My whole entire table is selected. How do I know my whole entire table is selected? Look at my handles right here. These three areas tell me I'm on table. Also, my properties panel, right here, it says property table. Right here, I can actually name the table to make it easier for me to go back. Now, when I move using an arrow, notice I am now within my table. The whole table's not selected. Look at my properties panel. Down here, it gives me the information for my cell. It doesn't say table, it says cell. Now, this is where we talk about getting into child and parent containers. I can set my whole entire table to have a background color of blue. If I go into this one cell and tell this one cell to be pink, what will win, blue or pink?
Pink.
Pink. Because overall the whole table says blue, but down individually this one cell it says pink, and pink would overwrite blue. Okay, same thing when we talked about that other CSS rule. So if you go into this one cell right here and change my font, even though for the whole table I set my font to one thing, you got to watch, because sometimes students get into trouble because they think they're setting it for the table and they're setting it for the cell, and then that one cell will look a lot different. So be aware where your cursor is for setting things. But we do have some different things we can do here. I also like in Dreamweaver, it makes it really easy to merge some cells going across if you needed to do one big row to highlight some information. All right, select table. The next thing we'll do is let's set our table properties. I can select the table. Come on. So with your entire table selected, let's go ahead and change our alignment. Right now our alignment of our whole entire table is set to default. Let's set our alignment to left. That will left align the table in the content block of the page. So that means no matter what, this table will be in the left-hand side of this page. It's going to do that within our CSS container. Now we're going to get into merging and resizing some columns, because I don't necessarily need all my columns the same size. So put your cursor in the first cell. Okay, intersection of a column and a row is called a cell, so I'm putting my cursor right within here. Down on the bottom, you will notice I can actually go through and set width and height. Okay, width and height. So what I want to do is I want to set my width to 30%. So I'll do 30, and then I'll type in the percent key. So it's going to be 30% of 600 pixels. When I set that width, notice what changes. Right here at the head of my column, it changed from nothing to 30. You will notice the whole table here, the green line going all the way across the top, says 600 because that's how wide our table is. So I have 30% for the first column. Let's do 30% for the second column. And we can't do 30% for the last column. Why? 30 plus 30 plus 30 is not 100, correct? So guess what we're going to do in the last one? 40. So last column is going to be at 40%, except I have the wrong thing. Okay. Notice after the percents, it gives us in numbers something in parentheses. So that is going to be, this column here is 174 pixels, the next one's 174 pixels, and then we have 235 pixels. If you knew the exact pixel width, you could do that, or you can just set it as a percent. Sometimes that's a little bit easier. Now, the other thing that you can do, if you didn't know exactly the width, you can actually click and drag the borders. Look up here so I can show you that. I can put my cursor, move my cursor right on one of these lines, and it's going to turn into a two-headed arrow. And I'm going to change my row height. And I can click, and then I can actually drag my row height. And I will be doing it just for that one. Everything else below it moves, but I can go ahead and change my row height. I want to keep it at its original width, but I just wanted to show you that you can, or excuse me, original height, but you can change it that way. Could I do the same thing with my column width? Yes, you can, but I want it set at 30, 30, and 40. So just so you know, you can move it that way if you were trying to eyeball it and you didn't know what percent. You can certainly change it that way. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to split and join cells. Okay, what does splitting a cell mean? In this one cell here, I'm going to take 1 and make it 2. Joining means I'm going to take 2 cells and make it 1. Oftentimes at the very top of a table, the whole top row would be one row that you'd put a heading or a title on. And the other times you just need to subdivide information in. So what I want to do, now you have to watch where your cursor is. Please go in this cell right here. Bottom left. First column, last row. Put your cursor in there. Where your cursor is will determine how all of this works. Now down here, I'm in my cell. Down here I have 2 buttons. Because I'm only in one cell, the only one I can do is this one, which is going to be the split. If I had more than one cell highlighted, I could actually do the join. So with my cursor in there, I'm going to go ahead and click on split, and it's going to ask me, do I want to split it into rows or do I want to split it into columns? And I actually want to do 2 rows. So I'm going to leave it set as rows and then 2 and then click on OK. Now let's go ahead and highlight the first column, first row, all 3 columns, excuse me. So I'm highlighting first one, all 3 across. Let's go ahead and join those. Because I have multiple ones selected, the only thing I can do now is join. And you will notice I now have a big spot to go ahead and put my title in here. In here I went through and added an extra row into that one cell. This is something that you can't do in Google Docs. You can do it by hand coding, but the coding looks really confusing when you look at it. Once you understand what to do, you can do it hand coding, it just makes it a little bit more difficult. So, in this one cell right here, you see where my flashing cursor is? Directly below my merged cell in the first column, we're going to put a picture in there. So you're going to insert your chocolate cake from chapter 6. So insert image, go to chapter 6, and you're going to choose chocolate cake. And your alt text would be chocolate Grand Marnier cake. Chocolate Grand Marnier cake. I'm trying to show you. I am on page 634, instruction 2. Chocolate Grand Marnier cake. I think I missed a direction. Hang on.